Welcome, Seekers, to the Library of Divine Echoes. I'm your host, Christopher Little, and today we step away from the frenetic pace of the modern world to descend into the cool, quiet archives of the Western mystery tradition. As we traverse the metaphorical corridors of this library, a space constructed not of bricks and mortar, but of consciousness and intent, we turn our attention to the mist-shrouded legacy of the Celtic peoples. This report constitutes a deep dive into the esoteric mechanics of Celtic witchcraft, a spiritual system often obscured by romanticism or simplified for mass consumption. Our objective is rigorous: to excavate the hollow hills of antiquity and retrieve a functional, high-level spiritual technology that serves the modern practitioner. We approach this subject not merely as historians observing a dead culture, but as spiritual archaeologists seeking tools for living empowerment. The lens through which we view this ancient wisdom is that of the growth mindset, a psychological framework that views capacity, talent, and spiritual depth not as fixed traits, but as malleable attributes capable of infinite expansion through dedicated practice and resilience. In the Celtic tradition, this mindset was embodied by the Fillid, poet-seers, and druids who underwent decades of rigorous training to transform the raw ore of the human soul into the gold of illumination. This analysis synthesizes the primal animism of the Celtic world with the structural precision of Hermetic philosophy. By identifying the correspondences between the chaotic, organic magic of the forest and the ordered cosmic laws of Hermeticism, we reveal a unified field of practice. Whether you are a beginner seeking grounding or a master seeking to refine your somatic alchemy, the principles outlined here offer a roadmap for genuine spiritual growth, harmony, and the cultivation of a resilient, abundant life. To practice Celtic witchcraft with efficacy, one must first understand the fundamental forces that govern its operation. Unlike the mechanistic view of the universe prevalent in modern materialism, the Celtic worldview was dynamic, interconnected, and fundamentally linguistic. The universe was spoken and sung into being, and it could be reshaped through the same mechanisms. Jan Fries, in his seminal manual Cauldron of the Gods, identifies three linguistic pillars that support the entire edifice of Celtic magic: Brixtia, Nerto, and Nimitos. Brixtia, the architecture of intentionality. Brixtia is the Gaulish term for magic, a cognate of the Old Irish bricht, meaning spell or charm. However, to translate it simply as spell is to strip it of its structural significance. In archaeological record, Brixtia appears on artifacts like the Larzac tablet, a lead sheet inscribed with complex binding curses involving rival covens of female practitioners. This usage suggests that Brixtia represents the formalized imposition of will upon the fabric of reality. In the context of the growth mindset, Brixtia is the art of conscious programming. It is the recognition that language is not merely descriptive, but creative. When the ancient practitioner inscribed a bricht, they were not wishing for a result. They were coding a new probability into the timeline. This aligns with the Hermetic principle of mentalism, the all is mind, which posits that the universe itself is a mental construct. Brixtia is the interface language of this mental universe. For the modern witch, the cultivation of Brixtia requires a rigorous discipline of the mind and tongue. It demands that we cease using language passively, complaining about circumstances or affirming our limitations, and begin using it actively to structure our reality. A growth mindset practitioner understands that every sentence spoken is a minor spell. To master Brixtia is to master one's internal monologue, transforming it from a critic into a creator. Nerto, the voltage of the soul. If Brixtia provides the structure, the circuitry, Nerto provides the current, Derived from the Indo-European root ner, meaning creative force or vital energy, nerto is the raw power that fuels the magical act. It is the Celtic equivalent of the Sanskrit prana, the Chinese ki, or the Polynesian mana. Nerto is not an abstract concept, it is a physiological and emotional reality. It is generated through intensity. The ancient rites raised Nerto through passionate dancing, wild music, prolonged prayer, chanting, rhythmic breathing, shaking and swaying, exhaustion, and intense lust. It is the fire of enthusiasm, entheos, God within, that bridges the gap between the internal desire and external manifestation. Within a Hermetic framework, Nerto relates to the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Magic is the art of changing the vibration of a situation or an individual. Nerto is the energy required to effect that shift. The implication for the practitioner is that low-energy rituals yield low-energy results. To cultivate abundance and empowerment, one must actively cultivate Nerto. This is where the growth mindset becomes physiological by pushing the body and emotional field beyond their comfort zones through fasting, ecstatic dance, or deep breath work. The practitioner expands their capacity to hold and direct high-voltage spiritual energy. Nimitos, the matrix of sacred space. The third pillar is nimitos, the root of the word nimiton, the sacred grove or sanctuary. Nimitos signifies that which is separated from the profane is the quality of sacredness itself. The ancient Celts did not typically build stone cathedrals to house their gods. Instead, they designated natural spaces, clearings in the forest, the confluence of rivers, or hilltops, as nimitons. The practice reveals a profound theological stance. The divine is not separate from nature, but it is the essence of nature, revealed through a shift in perception. A nimiton is created not by building walls, but by an act of attention. It is a space where the veil between the worlds is thinned by human recognition. This concept corresponds to the Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. The external nimiton in the landscape is a mirror of the internal nimiton in the heart of the witch. To welcome to the nimiton, as Jan Fries invites, is to enter a state of consciousness where everything is recognized as alive, sentient, and communicative. While Hermeticism is traditionally associated with Greco-Egyptian wisdom, the parallels with Celtic spirituality are striking and non-accidental. The Druids were contemporaries of the Alexandrian philosophers, and classical writers noted the similarities between Druidic doctrine and Pythagorean or Hermetic thought. By mapping the 7 Hermetic principles onto Celtic practice, we unlock a deeper, more rigorous understanding of how this nature magic actually functions as high ritual technology. The principle of mentalism and the other world. The Hermetic axiom, the all is mind, finds its Celtic expression in the concept of the other world, Anwen, Tira na nog, Mag Mel. The other world is not a distant heaven, but a parallel reality that interpenetrates the physical world, accessible through the mind, trance, dream, vision. The Celtic belief that the physical world is a reflection or a shadow of the other world is pure mentalism. The bard who shapes a story in their mind is shaping the reality of their tribe. The hero who journeys to the other world is journeying into the deep structures of the collective unconscious to rewrite the code of their existence. The principle of polarity, the 2 faces of the year. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Celtic cosmology is built upon a dynamic polarity that drives the cycle of life. The year is divided into 2 great halves. The dark half, Gymrid, beginning at Samhain, November, and the light half, Samrad, beginning at Beltane in May. Unlike later religious dualisms that equate dark with evil, Celtic polarity sees the dark as the necessary gestation period for the light. The dark half is the time of the Kelich, the crone, the writer, the ancestor, the root. It is the time for internalization, rest, and dream work. The light half is the time of Bridget, Angus, youth. The summer, the flower, the fruit. Growth mindset application. The modern practitioner uses this principle to harmonize with natural cycles rather than fighting them. When we experience periods of darkness, depression, stagnation, or lack of inspiration, we do not view them as failures. Instead, we recognize them as the gain rid of the soul, a necessary season for the roots to deepen so that the future harvest, abundance, can be sustained. We transmute the polarity of failure into gestation. The principle of rhythm, the great wheel. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. The Celtic obsession with the quarter days and cross-quarter days, solstices, equinoxes, and the 4 fire festivals is a sophisticated technology for synchronizing human activity with the principle of rhythm. The ancient Druids understood that the universe breathes. To act against the breath is to exhaust oneself. To act with the breath is to gain infinite leverage. Waxing tides, Imbolc to summer solstice, the time for expansion, initiation, and outward action. Waning tides, Lammas to winter solstice, time for harvest, release, composting, and inward reflection. By structuring their lives around this wheel, Celtic practitioners ensured that their magical workings were always swimming with the current of the cosmos, maximizing efficiency and harmony. The principle of effect, the Geist. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. In Irish mythology, this principle is codified in the Geis, plural geisa, a sacred taboo or prohibition placed upon a hero or king. For example, the hero Cuchulainn had a geis never to eat dog meat. When he violated this, the cause, his strength withered and his death followed, the effect. The Geist teaches that power is not free. It operates within a web of causality. The more power, nerto, a person wields, the more their actions ripple through the web of word, fate. A growth mindset which accepts radical responsibility for their life, understanding that their current reality is the effect of past causes, thoughts, actions, beliefs, and that they have the power to generate new causes today that will inevitably produce a desired effect, abundance, mastery, tomorrow. The principle of gender, sovereignty and the land. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. This is central to the Celtic concept of sovereignty. The king, masculine agency, must be wedded to the goddess of the land, feminine receptivity, for the kingdom to prosper. This is not merely biological gender, but energetic polarity. The masculine aspect of magic is the projection of intent, the wand, the spell. The feminine aspect is the holding of space for manifestation, the cauldron, the vision. True power arises from the sacred marriage, eros gamos, of these two forces within the practitioner. Action without intuition is barren. Intuition without action is impotent. Perhaps the most potent tool for self-transformation within Celtic witchcraft is the system of the 3 cauldrons, na, trí, coral. Found in a 16th century manuscript referencing 7th century material, this system offers an indigenous Western map of the energetic body, comparable to the Hindu chakras or Taoist denshins. This system is explicitly evolutionary. It describes a path of moving from mere survival to divine inspiration through the transmutation of experience. 1. Kori Guriath, the Cauldron of Warming. Location: the lower belly or pelvis, root sacral. Status at birth: upright in healthy individuals. Function: physical vitality, survival, basic bodily health, ancestral memory, and the fire in the belly. Significance: this cauldron keeps us alive. It digests our food and our raw perceptions. If this cauldron is inverted, we suffer from physical illness or a disconnection from reality. Growth practice: to cultivate abundance, one must first tend the cauldron of warming. This involves grounding practices, physical exercise, eating nourishing foods, and acknowledging one's physical needs. You cannot reach the stars if your feet are not planted on the earth. 2. Kori Ernmas, the Cauldron of Vocation or Motion. Location: the chest, heart center, solar plexus, heart. Status at birth: tilted on its side. Function: emotion, passion, career, artistic expression, ego, relationships. It governs our movement through life. Turning mechanism: this is the crucible of the growth mindset. The text states that this cauldron is turned upright by joy and sorrow. Esoteric analysis: this cauldron is born half empty. It requires the friction of intense life experience to fully activate. It teaches that grief, loss, and failure are not errors. They are the mechanical force required to turn the cauldron upright. A growth mindset which does not hide from sorrow, they use it to fill their cauldron. By fully processing our emotions, both the ecstasy of love and the agony of loss, we generate the steam, energy, that rises to activate the third cauldron. 3. Kori Swa, the Cauldron of Wisdom or Knowledge. Location: the head, third eye crown. Status at birth: inverted, upside down. Function: divine inspiration, prophecy, higher intellect, connection to the other world. Turning mechanism: it cannot be turned by will alone. It is turned by the rising heat from the cauldrons below. Significance: in the uninitiated, this cauldron is upside down. Divine wisdom pours over it and splashes off, wasted. Only when the cauldron of vocation is upright and boiling with the heat of processed experience does the rising steam force the cauldron of wisdom to flip upright to catch the flow of awen, inspiration. Exercise: uprighting the cauldrons. To implement this, perform a daily check-in meditation. 1. Belly. Breathe into the lower abdomen. Is it warm? Is it tight? Visualize a red or gold vessel sitting upright, filled with glowing embers. Feed it with the breath. 2. Heart. Move attention to the chest. Is it constricted? Visualize a blue or silver vessel. If it feels empty or tilted, recall a moment of deep emotion, joy or grief, and allow that feeling to flow into the vessel, physically turning it upright to catch the energy. 3. Head. Move attention to the brow. Visualize a white crystal vessel. Imagine the heat from the belly and heart rising up the spine like steam, pushing the upper cauldron open to receive the white light of the cosmos. The Philid, poet-seers, of ancient Ireland were not mere fortune-tellers. They were technicians of the mind who developed rigorous methods to access non-local information. 3 specific techniques recorded in the Sans Cormac, Cormac's Glossary, and analyzed by Jan Fries: the Frith, Imbos Forasnai, and Tinum Leda. These are not superstitions, but protocols for altering consciousness to read the pattern of the universe. The Frith, Augury of the Threshold. An Frith is a Scottish-Irish technique of walking between worlds to read the omens of the environment. It relies on the idea that the universe is holographic. The microcosm, what you see in a single moment, reflects the macrocosm, the future. Implementation protocol. 1. Timing. Traditionally performed on the first Monday of a quarter, for example, the first Monday after Samhain or before sunrise. 2. The threshold. The practitioner stands at the doorway of their house. The threshold is a liminal space, neither in nor out. 3. Preparation. The seer must be fasting, bareheaded, and barefoot, grounding. 4. The ritual stance. With eyes closed, place a hand on each door jamb, forming a living cross. This signals the intent to bridge the worlds. 5. The invocation. Recite a prayer to the god of the unseen, or your specific deities, to grant the sight. 6. The augury. Open your eyes. The first living thing or movement you see constitutes the omen. Interpretation. A man standing, strength of success. A bird flying right, deosil, good fortune. A bird flying left, widdershins, obstacle. A cat, reference to witchcraft or independence. Growth mindset. If the omen is negative, do not despair. The frith reveals the current trajectory, not a fixed fate. Use the information to adjust your course. Embosphorosnai, the light of foresight. This high-level technique was reserved for the Olam, master poet. It combines sensory deprivation, ritual sacrifice, and hypnagogia to induce prophetic visions. Implementation protocol, modern adaptation. 1. The catalyst. The ancient text prescribes chewing a piece of raw flesh, pig, dog, or cat. The esoteric function here is stimulating the vagus nerve through chewing and connecting to the mouth, cauldron of wisdom, to the gut, cauldron of warming. Modern practitioners may substitute raw meat with a high vitality substance like a piece of red steak, cooked rare, a hazelnut, or a pomegranate seed, focusing on the act of chewing to stimulate the primal senses. 2. The offering. A portion is offered to the local spirits, idols, behind the door. 3. Sensory deprivation. The poet retires to a dark room, the dark cell. 4. The somatic seal. The practitioner places their palms over their cheeks, eyes, bas, crossing the hands to seal out light and distraction. This creates a biofeedback loop, signaling the brain to turn inward. 5. The incubation. The poet drifts into a twilight state, hypnagogia, holding a specific question. The answer arises as a vivid, lucid dream or vision. Tinam Leda, the breaking of the marrow. Often translated as illumination of song or breaking the marrow, this technique involves cracking open the essence of a subject to understand it instantly. It is associated with the use of a wand or staff and spontaneous poetry. Implementation protocol. The poet touches an object or person with their wand, directing focus. They immediately recite a poem or stream of consciousness description of the object. Mechanism. This bypasses the analytical critical mind, the censor, and taps directly into the subconscious stream of associations. It is a practice of radical trust in one's intuition. It trains the mind to enter a flow state on command. In the Celtic tradition, the bard was a reality engineer. Through satire, air, and praise, they could literally raise or destroy kings. This power rested on the understanding that reality is structured by stories. The fire of motivation, reframing reality. The Philid used praise poetry to inflate the nerto, power, of a hero, making them capable of superhuman feats. Conversely, satire was used to identify a flaw and magnify it until this subject's social standing collapsed. Growth mindset application. You are the bard of your own life. The internal monologue is a constant stream of either praise or satire. The fixed mindset satirizes the self. I am stupid. I always fail. This acts as a curse, air, blistering the soul and draining nerto. The growth mindset sings praise. I am learning. This failure is the friction turning my cauldron of vocation. Best practice. Consciously craft a praise song for yourself. When you face a challenge, narrate it not as a defeat, but as a heroic ordeal in the story of your evolution. The myth of Taliesin, the blueprint of transformation. The story of Taliesin is the master myth of this tradition, encoding the process of spiritual rebirth. 1. Gwaun Bach, the uninitiated. He stirs the cauldron of Cauldron, the great goddess, for a year and a day. He is the servant doing the boring, repetitive work. Lesson: mastery requires grit and patience. 2. The accident, Gnosis. 3 drops of wisdom splash onto his thumb. He tastes them and achieves enlightenment. Lesson: insight often comes from accidents or crises, not just planned study. 3. The chase, shapeshifting. Cauldron chases him. He transforms into a hare, a fish, a bird, a grain of wheat. Lesson: to survive initiation, the ego must become fluid. One must master all elements: earth, water, air. 4. The death, integration. Cauldron eats him as a hen. He grows in her womb and is reborn as Taliesin, radiant brow. Lesson: the old self must be totally consumed to birth the new. The Celtic witch does not worship in nature. They worship nature as divinity. Nimitona is the goddess of the sacred grove, the matrix that holds the web of life together. A handful of forests, somatic ogham. Jan Fries references a technique called a handful of forests, which relates to the ogham alphabet. The ogham is a tree-based script where each letter corresponds to a tree, for example, Beith, birch, Dür, oak. Technique: the Celts used the joints of the fingers to memorize and invoke these energies. Map of the forest. Assign the ogham trees to the joints of your fingers, for example, the tip of the thumb for Beith. Activation. By pressing your thumb against a specific joint, you somaticize the energy of that tree. Need resilience? Press the joint for Dür, oak. Need purification? Press Beith, birch. This turns the hand into a living wand, allowing you to carry the forest into the boardroom or the subway. The sanctity of water. Water is the boundary between this world and the other world. The Celts treated rivers and wells as sentient goddesses, Boan, Sinan. Offerings were cast into the deep, not to discard them, but to bank them in the spiritual treasury. Best practice: re-enchant your relationship with water. Treat every glass of water as a potion of clarity. When you visit a natural body of water, make an offering, a silver coin, a song, a biodegradable flower, to acknowledge the genius loci, spirit of the place. This builds the reciprocal relationship required for abundance. To practice Celtic witchcraft today is not to roleplay the past, but to apply these timeless technologies to the present. It is to use Brixtia to program your mind, Nerto to fuel your ambitions, and the cauldrons to transmute your suffering into wisdom. It is to stand at the threshold of your own life, like the Frithir, and see the divine omens in the chaotic data of the modern world. The primrose mentioned in the ancient texts is the humble key that opens the hollow hills. It represents the small, daily acts of noticing, the growth mindset that sees every obstacle as a teacher and every moment as a nimeton. You are the cauldron. You are the fire. You are the brew. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose, drawing the air down deep into the darkness of your belly. And exhale slowly, releasing the weight of the day. Again, in, anchoring yourself in the earth, and out, letting go of all that is not you. Imagine you are standing at the edge of an ancient forest at twilight. The air is cool and smells of pine needles, damp earth, and wood smoke. Before you stands a great mound of earth, a hollow hill tangled with the roots of a massive oak tree. At the base of the roots, you see a faint, golden glow. It is a single primrose, the wish flower. You reach down and pluck the flower. As you do, the roots of the oak tree groan and part, revealing a dark passage leading down into the earth. You are not afraid. You are the seeker. You step inside. You descend the earthen stairs, down, deeper into the body of the ancestors. The air grows warm and humid. You hear the bubbling of water and the crackle of fire. You emerge into a vast, cavernous hall lit by the glow of a central hearth. In the center stands a massive cauldron. It is iron, black as night, etched with spirals. It is filled with a thick, shimmering liquid that swirls like the galaxy. This is the cauldron of potential. Bring your attention to your belly. Visualize a smaller cauldron sitting upright in your pelvis. It is glowing red. Feel the heat of it. This is your survival, your strength. Breathe into it. I am safe. I am grounded. I am here. Move your attention to your heart. Visualize a cauldron in your chest. It might be tilted or lying on its side. Think of a sorrow you have carried, or a joy that moved you to tears. Offer that feeling to the cauldron. Watch as the energy of that emotion hits the vessel, turning it upright. It fills with a blue, fluid light. I feel. I flow. I am open. Visualize a crystal cauldron inverted in your skull. Feel the heat rising from your belly, through your heart, steam rising up the spine. The pressure builds. The steam strikes the crystal cauldron, flipping it upright to catch the light falling from the stars above. I know. I see. I am wise. Now look into the great cauldron before you. Cast into it a fear or limitation you wish to transform. Watch it hit the liquid. Hiss. It dissolves. The cauldron bubbles over, releasing a mist of pure gold. The mist. It is the Awen, the breath of inspiration. It fills your three cauldrons, connecting them in a pillar of light. You are Taliesin reborn. You are the wind, the wave, the star. There is no failure here, only transformation. It is time to return. You bow to the deep ones. You ascend the stairs, up, up, back to the cool night air. You step out from the roots. The stars are shining above you. You feel lighter, clearer, renewed. Take a deep breath. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Feel the chair beneath you. When you are ready, open your eyes. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us in the Library of Divine Echoes and taking part in this exploration of the fascinating practice of Celtic witchcraft. I hope that you have gained the knowledge and information necessary to bring some aspects of this ancient tradition into your own practices. We'll look forward to our future episodes, which we hope you will attend. Until next time, may you be joyful, resilient, and steadfast in your own spiritual journey and evolution.